welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have my February wrap-up part 1. So today is the 15th, so we're about halfway through the month. We're a little over halfway through the month, but I decided that I was going to do a part 1 to the wrap-up. You're not going to see it till March, but I knew that because I've read so much already, it's going to be a very long wrap-up, so I decided to split it into 2 videos. So, like I said, it's the 15th, and I've already read 13 books, so plenty to give you updates on. I've read 6 physical books, I've read 4 audiobooks, and I've read 3 Kindle Unlimited books, so I've definitely read a variety of things. I am participating in the Black Author Readathon, so like I said in my TBR, I was gonna loosely participate, but I was able to find a way to make 10 of my books work for that. Some of the prompts are very I didn't do a very nice job. It's called historical romance, and I read a historical fiction book that had an ounce of romance, and I counted it anyways. So I've kind of stretched the rules a little bit for Black Author Readathon, but I'm still having so much fun, and I'm reading Black authors, and it's working. So I'm gonna keep counting it. I've read 2 5-star reads. I read 1 4.5-star read. I read 7 4-stars. I read 2 3-stars, and I read 1 2-star read. So I'm not having the month like I had last month. Last month I only had 1 1-star read, and everything else was 4 and up. This month I've hit some snags, but you know what? The ones that I really have loved and have really enjoyed have made it worth it. So the first book I read this month was Southern Storms by Brittany C. Cherry, and this counted as my childhood friends to grown-up lover prompt for Black Author Readathon. It's been so long that I don't even remember where I put it in my bingo board, but this is by Brittany C. Cherry, and I need to read her more often. She is one of those authors that I love. Now this is my 2nd book by her, but she is definitely an author that I adore and cannot get enough of. Her books are the type of books that make me wish that I highlighted books, because of the fact that she has so many good quotes and things that I wish that I could have forever, and it makes me mad that I'm not somebody who does that, because her books make me want to do that. So I read this over on Kindle Unlimited. This is the first book in a series. The second book, called Eastern Lights, comes out this month in 3 days, and I cannot wait. So Southern Storms, we are following our 2 main characters. They actually knew each other as children, but they have since gone their own separate ways. They met at a camp, and they were best of friends, and then they kind of lose touch, and years later they kind of cross each other's paths, and at first they don't actually realize that they have any connection. Our main female character, I'm blanking on their names right now, and I don't have the physical books to go back and look. So she is escaping a awful marriage, and she's trying to restart her life, and she goes to this town, and she's starting to kind of reset her roots, and she comes across the town's jerk, and she and him butt heads right off the bat, and it turns out it's him from her childhood, and it's them kind of refinding their friendship, refinding themselves, refinding each other, and it's a beautiful story. It's hard-hitting, so there's definitely some dark elements in this where they're dealing with pasts that are traumatic, and I loved this one. I cried. I gave it 5 stars, and again, I'm dying for Eastern Lights in a few days, because this book was just phenomenal. Then I read Ties That Tether by Jane Igaro. I forgot, I think I counted this one as an interracial relationship. And I picked this one up one night, and I was I'm just gonna read a chapter or 2, see if this is the one that I really want to start next. Next thing I knew, I was 100 pages into this book. This one reads so easy. This is a kind of rom-com with substance. I called it in my review on Instagram. This is following our main character, and she has immigrated from Africa to, Nigeria to Canada. words. And when her father was dying, she kind of made this dying wish to him and promised to him that she was going to marry a Nigerian man. And her mom does everything under the sun to set her up with all these Nigerian men, and she wants nothing to do with them. And one night she has a one-night stand with a white man, which is obviously everything that she's not supposed to be doing. And they kind of go their own ways, and then a few months later, he shows back up in her life somehow. So I found this one very compelling, very easy to read. I found it funny. I found it witty. They like to talk about different, like, romance movies in here. It was just a lot of fun. And like I said, it had that substance. It had the talk about interracial dating. It had the talk of, like, what it meant to stay true to your culture and how to merge cultures potentially. And having that, like, relationship with your mother and what do you owe to your family and what do you owe to yourself. It hit so many other points other than just being a strict romance. So if you haven't tried this one, I highly recommend it because it was such a quick read and I really enjoyed my experience reading this one. After that, I picked up The Beauty and Breaking by Michelle Harper, and this is a memoir written by Michelle Harper. And this was another one where I told myself, I'm just going to read a few chapters before bed and just see if I like it. And next thing I know, I literally only had 80 pages left of this book before I went to bed. And I have no idea how that happened. Like I said, it just flowed. It just, like, gripped me in. This is about Michelle Harper, and she is Black and she's in the medical field. She works in the ER as a doctor, which is a primarily white position, and it just is her story of her trying to find her place of where does she want to work, where does she fit in, what type of job does she really fit into, and the patients that she's kind of come across and the life lessons that she's learned along the way. And I liked this book because in the beginning it does say, like, she's an emergency room physician in a profession that's made for men and white. And so I assumed that this was going to be primarily just about race. And it was so much more than that. There were so many great takeaways from this. There was a quote in here that I even, like, used with my students, and it was, I think she got the quote from someone else, but still she included it in this, which made it very impactful for me. And it talked about failure is knowing that the path that you've taken doesn't work, but you still continue trying to do that anyways. So I found that very relatable, and I was explaining to my students because sometimes we make mistakes and you need to learn from those mistakes, because I gave the example, I compared it to a door, and this door, if I keep pulling it and pulling it and pulling it and it's not working and I don't do anything differently and I continue to pull this door is never going to open because it's a push door. So if I continue to keep trying to pull it, like, nothing's going to happen. The door will never ever open. You need to try new things and try different ways, and then eventually the door will open. So I really thought that was, like, one quote that I, like, took away from this that I thought was really important, but there's so much more in this. I was kind of intimidated by this because I am not in the medical field at all, so I knew that there was going to be some things that I just didn't understand, but overall I gave this book 4 stars, and I find it very impactful, and I highly recommend you give this one a try. Then I read Apprentice in Theory by Alyssa Cole. It's so funny to hold, like, a big book of the month and then you hold this little mass market. So this is Apprentice in Theory by Alyssa Cole. This is the first book in the Reluctant Royal series. I actually listened to this one on audio through my library Hoopla app. And I highly recommend, if you're going to read this book, I highly recommend you check out the audiobook. I adored this book. I thought it was like The Prince and Me meets Princess Diaries meets Coming to America with a slight, like, Black Panther-esque in here. It was so good. We are following our 2 main characters, Nalady and the Biso. So Nalady is getting all these emails being like, hey, you are the heir to this, you need to, like, marry this prince. And she's like, stop trying to scam me out of money. Delete, 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 delete. She's in college. She's in STEM, which is phenomenal. They really implemented that very well. And Prince the Biso is like, no, I need to go find my princess. And, like, he's like going to New York to find her. So again, that's where we got like the coming to America, but it's also like the Prince and I, because when she meets him, she doesn't realize that he's a prince and she confuses him for a commoner. So again, kind of where the Prince and I, and obviously she ends up finding out that really she is possibly this heir and is supposed to be his wife. So kind of that Princess Diaries, but Prince I'm not saying that right. He has an assistant who really reminded me of like kind of the assistant in Black Panther. So it's a whole whirlwind of fun and charm, and I love the banter between these characters, and the love story was not one of those like rushed love stories. And what I love about this series so far is that I find that each book kind of has something more to it than just the romance that kind of makes it like real life applicable. So I love this series. Again, I highly recommend the audiobooks because you really kind of feel that humor and that fun, and I can't believe I've been sleeping on this series because it's phenomenal, and this is not the last time you will see this series in this wrap-up today. Then I read This Is My America by Kim Johnson, and this is a YA novel, and I wanted to read Just Mercy before I read this one, and I'm glad that I did because Just Mercy is nonfiction, and this is kind of the fictional version of it, if you want to say that. So we are following our main character, I'm forgetting her name, Tracy, and her father is on death row, and she's been writing to the Innocence X Project. Please help my father. Please get him off. He's innocent. Please come help him. And she's really getting no response. And in the meantime, because her father is literally like 250 days away from being executed, her brother gets accused of basically murdering his girlfriend. So now she's trying to figure out what to do and how to help her father and help her brother and live her life and trying to figure out what to do. And there's this big mystery of like, what's going on with her brother and the mystery of what really happened with her father and that murder that he was accused of. And this was so good. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Oh, I didn't even explain. I gave this one 5 stars in case you couldn't tell. This one I gave 4 stars because every now and then it felt a little bit slow, and there is romance in this. So bad at this. I also forgot to say that I used this as a new to me Black author, and I used this one for a friend group romance. And then I used this one for like a friends to lover romance because in here there's kind of a love triangle going on between 2 of her friends and her, and she doesn't know which friend she likes more. And yeah, that romance I didn't really care for. I felt like I really wanted to just focus on her father and her brother, but I feel like it did kind of humanize her as a character and like really made her feel part of the story as well. So it was important. I didn't love that aspect, but it did make me cry. It did make me bawl. The last scene, tears. The author's note was phenomenal. If you've been interested in this one, please don't hesitate. You need to pick this one up ASAP. Then after that, I read, it got put out of order by accident. Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson, and this one I read over on Instagram with Mama Lee Ellen, Mama Lee Ellen's Book Nook. I will leave her link down below. She also now has a YouTube channel, so I highly recommend you check her out. We read this one in the beginning of the month, and I included this as my historical romance, even though the romance is part of this. It's just a small bit of an entire bigger picture. We are following our main character, Phoebe, who is spelled Pheby, and I spent most of the book calling her Febby by accident, and then I realized halfway through that it's Phoebe. I felt really, really stupid. So this one is following Phoebe, and she is living on a plantation, and she's not necessarily a slave, but she's obviously not free either. Her mother is the medicine woman to the master, and so she's held in very high esteem, so she is kind of treated better than anybody else on this plantation. she is promised that when she is 18 that she will get her freedom papers. And she's like, yes, I can't wait till I turn 18, because then she felt like she can go and live her life and eventually have the love of her life be with her, and because he is trying to save money for his freedom. So she's picturing this like beautiful future. Change of plans, she ends up getting sold and basically brought to this jail for slaves, and now she's got to figure out a new way of survival because it's completely not the way she just spent her last 18 years. This book is heartbreaking. This book is difficult. This book makes you cringe. I'm like literally getting you can't tell obviously, but my legs just got these big goosebumps of chills, because there are scenes in this book that you wanted to skip, but she was not afraid to shy away from the dark, gritty awfulness of what slaves went through. And I think that we often want to turn a blind eye to our history and not want to remember that because it was such a brutal time. But we've got to remember that so that way we never make those mistakes again, because, oh my God, like I said, I'm still getting cringes. I want to cry. This book is heartbreaking, but there are hopeful moments in here. There are beautiful moments in here. For a 300, like less than 300 page book, this one was super impactful and so well done. You will continue turning the pages. I read this in one day. The ending does get a little bit rushed, and I felt like, because at one point it started getting a little bit slow, and then out of nowhere it just like full steam ahead, just ran at the ending, and then I was like, is there more pages? Like, what? Like, I wanted another epilogue, like I wanted something extra. So I did give this one 4 stars, even though it was so amazing, and this one will definitely stick with me for a very long time, because it's one that like you don't want to say you enjoy, because it was literally reading pure torture at times. So like I wouldn't say that I enjoyed this one, but I will say that I learned a lot from this one, and it's such an important read. And if you've been hesitant about picking it up, I highly recommend you pick that one up. Then I read The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. I happened to borrow this one from Hoopla, and you only get like a certain amount of borrows, and I borrowed it like right at the end of January, so it looped into February, and it like counted as like my like 8 for the month. So even though this one didn't count for any of my squares, I wanted to read it anyways because I had already borrowed it. I had heard mixed things about this one, and I have to agree that I didn't love this one. I gave this one 3 stars, and this one's following Juno, who kind of believes that Winnie has the perfect family. She's got the perfect husband, the perfect son, the perfect everything. And like she's kind of living in this place where she knows that her life isn't perfect, and she's basically got a diagnosis that's saying that her outcome is not going to be so well. So she's trying to find a place to kind of live out her final days, and she ends up overhearing something about this family that kind of changes her perception of them and gets this ball rolling. When I finished this book, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just found it to be a book. I gave it 3 stars. I found it, as much as you want to say that it's fiction, and fiction books obviously don't have to be realistic, I didn't find this one realistic at all. There's something about Juno that just doesn't make sense to me, that she was able to get away with some of the things that she was doing. The ending kind of felt out of left field. I don't understand the point. It was very gripping. You wanted to know what was going to happen, but at the same time, and there were twists, there were turns, just like Taryn Fisher often has. I just felt no connection to it, and I didn't really care for it. So it ended up getting 3 stars from me. Another 3-star read for me was The Push by Ashley Audrin. This was on my TBR for the month because I wanted to read it before I got spoiled for it, because I had been seeing people talking about it like crazy, and I wanted to get to it before people spoiled it for me. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I still don't even know my thoughts about this one. This one was very bizarre. So this is about a woman who kind of wants it all. She had kind of a tragic past, but she wants the marriage, she wants the children. And one day she has the child, she has a little girl, and she's convinced that her little girl is there's something wrong with her, and that she tries to convince other people that there's something wrong with their daughter. They don't want to believe her. And then she has her son, and she's kind of proven, like, oh my god, my son is perfect, so something definitely is wrong with my daughter. We are following, she's telling the story in second person, so you often are referred to you. She's telling her husband a story. He is the you, but you are the you. And then there's also past perspectives of her growing up, so you could see the tragic past that she came from, but you also see her grandmother, like her mother's perspective of how her mother grew up. So kind of the generational pull too. This is one of those stories that you start wondering, are you losing it? You don't know if you can trust our main character at all. So you don't know if she's trustworthy, if what's happening is really what's happening, or if it's not what's actually happening and that you're losing your mind. It's a very frustrating read. I found myself very angry with the main character, but I was also very angry at the people around her if her story was true. So I found myself very flustered and very angry. But it was one of those books that you couldn't put down because you wanted to know if you were losing your mind or not. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. The ending just kind of dropped a bomb, and I don't know how I felt about it. So it's getting 3.5 stars because I have no idea. Then after that, I read Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole. And this is book 2 in the Reluctant Royal series. Like I told you, this was not going to be the last time that you saw this series. This is book 2. We are following Portia, who is Nilady's best friend. And Portia, when we leave her off in that other book, she's in a place where she kind of wants to reinvent herself. She goes on this Portia project because she wants to be a better person. And she ends up going to Scotland to do an apprenticeship making swords, which is totally not like her at all. She's kind of sworn off men at this point, sworn off drinking. She's going to be a better Portia. And when she goes there, she ends up meeting Tavish, and it just goes from there. I didn't love this one as much as I loved book 1, but I did love the banter. I did love the story. I did find it fun. I just felt like it didn't live up as much as the first one did for me. So I did give it 4 stars instead of the 5th star like I gave the other one, but I can't get enough of the series. So much I can't get enough of the series that I also downloaded Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, which I don't own as of right now. This is the novella. So this one counted as a workplace romance. Tavish is her boss. I forgot to say that. And then the novella counted as read a novella. So the novella, like I said, is called Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, and we are following the assistant to Prince Thabizo, which is kind of that character that I told you that reminded me of the Black Panther. We're following her love story, and when she was in book 1, they came to New York, like I said, and apparently, unbeknownst to us, she apparently had a little rendezvous with a woman that she met on an app. And at the time, they kind of were just going to spend a few days with each other, but she had made a really intense connection with this woman. And she decides that she wanted to kind of potentially talk about being more, but she's suddenly ghosted. She goes back to living her life, and she ends up coming back to New York, and she ends up reconnecting with her, and it's them trying to spend this day together and figuring out, do they want to be something more, and why did she get ghosted in the first place? This one obviously is a novella, so it's a little bit shorter than the other books, and I thought this one was really sweet and really cute, so I gave it 4 stars. Novellas are really hard for me because I feel like I need things more fleshed out. I need more, so I couldn't give it that 5th star, but I thought that it was really, really sweet, and I can't wait to read the next novella and book 3 later on this month. Then I read The Idea of You by Robin Lee, and I read this over on Kindle Unlimited, and I read this one because everybody lately has been raving about it, and I included this as my rock star romance for the Black Author Readathon, and we are following our main character, Celine, and Celine is a divorcee. She's got a daughter, and she is a co-owner of an art gallery. and her ex-husband wins tickets to this British boy band that her daughter is obsessed with, and he's supposed to take her and her friends to this concert, but, you know, he bails. So Celine has to take the girls to the concert. She has no idea who this boy band even is, and she goes and she meets Hayes, and Hayes is in this band, and they kind of have this weird connection. He is 20 years younger than her, so this could have counted as age gap too, but I used it as rock star. And it kind of starts this whirlwind romance of them meeting in different states and different countries to have this, like, love affair. But I found this one really long. It's almost 400 pages. I found it very boring. I found it just to be this sexual, I could be your mom. I could be your mom. I could be your mom. Oh my gosh, we have to keep us a secret. We're a secret. We're a secret. Like, it just felt like I didn't buy their romance at all. I didn't understand their sexual chemistry. It made absolutely no sense to me. I felt like they had nothing in common. When they talked, basically that's all it was about how he's older, how he's younger than her, and that they need to keep it a secret, and it didn't work for me at all. And I gave it 2 stars. I did like the travel aspect. I did like them going to other places to meet, but I just didn't like this one. And by the end, it got really weird, and just, the ending was disappointing. I really read to the end hoping that it was going to redeem it, but it did not redeem at all. Then I read The Nature of Fragile Things by Susan Meisner. This is the second book that I read for Mama Leah Lynn's book club. We are reading one more after this one, but this is the second one, and this is a historical fiction novel that takes place in 1906, I think, with the Great San Francisco earthquake. We are following our main character, Sophie. Sophie is originally from Ireland, and she has come over to the States. She had been living in New York, and she answers an ad in a paper for this man in California who is looking for a wife for himself and a mother to his daughter, because his wife has passed. And she's kind of just ready to keep living her life and get out of New York, and she goes and she marries him the very first day she sees him. And in the very first chapter, there's an interview between her and a detective, and her husband is missing. There was a great earthquake and fires, and her husband has gone missing, so they are trying to figure out what happened to him and their story. And I found this one to be really good. I gave it 4 stars, I think, because I was balancing it with another book that I was enjoying more, which I will talk about next. I think that it was hard for me to really invest myself in this story, also because I have been really gung-ho and really enjoying my experience doing the Black Author Readathon, that reading a book that didn't count really was messing with my head. So I wasn't really in a place that I could really devote myself as much as I wanted to this book. So I gave it 4 stars, but I'm sure if I had read it separately, I could have enjoyed it more and given it 5 stars. But I did find it to be a little slow at times. I did like the format because I did like the detective interview, because it would set a ball rolling and you would start reading to, like, explain what happened in that interview, and then another interview would happen with another secret or another twist, and then we would have more of the story, and then we would have another interview with a secret or a twist, and then we would keep going. So it kind of, like, kept the pacing going. So it would start to slow down, but then they'd be like, and wow, here you go, another piece. And then you would, like, slow down, and then it'd be, wow, another piece. So it was engaging. I found it interesting. It made me really want to look more into this earthquake that happened, because this just sounded devastating. It took out an entire town, and the fires, and just, it was really interesting. And I'm glad that I read it. We are chatting about this one on Wednesday. The Wednesday will have already passed at this point, but we are going to be meeting with the author too, so I'm excited to see what the author has to say, and I'm glad that I ended up picking it up. Then after that, I just finished The Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, and this is going to count as my sports romance box. And I have been wanting to try Kennedy Ryan for a while. I just didn't know where to start, and I'm so glad that I started with this one. except it's super dark. So if you are going to read this one, just know that it is a very dark romance. It really gets gritty. It really gets dark. There's lots of trigger warnings, so definitely look those up if you are interested in trigger warnings. We are following our main character, Iris, and she kind of has this like meet cute with this boy named August. It's the night before the championship game for basketball. It's like March Madness, and he's in the game, and they kind of have this meet cute, but the only problem is she has a boyfriend, and her boyfriend is actually August's rival, Caleb, because he's playing for the other team, and it's kind of their journey through life. Because it takes place over many years of their comings into each other's lives and kind of coming out of each other's lives and coming back in each other's lives. This book is almost 500 pages. It is 500 pages if you read the bonus epilogue. There is a bonus epilogue, which I had to go find immediately. So it is eventually, once you all is said and done, about a 500-page romance novel. So it definitely spans a lot of time. I gave this one 4.5 stars because I did find it to be a little bit long. I feel like there could have been another edit or two in there that would have made it a little bit shorter. But this is a heartbreaking read. This is, like I said, a hard read. Caleb is probably the worst character I have read in a very, very long time. It made me want to, like, throw up. He was that disgusting of a human being. So I'm really glad that I read this series. I'm really excited to continue on eventually with the companion novels. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I read this on Kindle Unlimited. I highly recommend it if you are a romance lover, if you love dark romance, if you love that kind of thing. But again, definitely look up the triggers if you are interested in triggers, because this one takes it there. But I will say that one thing that I really, really loved and appreciated about this book is the fact that Kennedy Ryan makes Iris such a strong character, someone that you could really relate to, look up to, admire. August is also such a perfect love interest, and I really loved their relationship together, and it was a very, very well done book, and I highly recommend you check it out if that is your cup of tea. So thank God I cut this into 2 parts, because this is already 30 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Keeping your eyes peeled for part 2. Hopefully it won't be as long as this one. And I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.